Welcome to Get Serious. So I know yesterday I was remarking on, some of the nasty updates about this transactional deal and how we're just, you know, starting to incorporate or starting to encounter some potentially brewing legal situations. Literally the last thing I would want to be spending my time on. I think a lot of other operators can agree with that. And we're just, a lot of wrenches thrown our way this week. So on top of that, like right as I'm in the middle of dealing with that transactional deal situation, and you can listen to yesterday's episode if you want more on that. I'm getting another text from this deal, this messy title deal that we've been working on for the better part of 8 months. Also in Texas, that we were finally set to close. Like it's taken forever. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast a number of times. But just this kind of crazy situation for a large acreage and this estate deal, and just, tons of affidavits of heirship were just needed, and back and forth, and witnesses and the title company and attorney prepping the docs. They were so slow, and it just took forever to get this done. And we were finally there. We got the final last witnesses good to go, seller scheduled to sign the final closing docs yesterday. And then I hear from the originator saying, the seller has gotten cold feet, was in tears, and had called the title company and said, I need to reschedule to next week, and now is not answering his phone. It seemed to be related to one of the last witnesses that was needed for the affidavit of heirship, his sister, who he hadn't seen since I think their mom's death. That kind of led to this estate sale. And we've seen this pattern before. We've dealt with this. Family conversations get involved at the very last minute prior to land sales, and then just some regret starts coming up. But like, we are very deep in this one, and we have, over $5,000 in hard costs committed to it. I mean, something that we could live with, but it hurts. It would hurt if we had it, and we thought we were going to have to give up on it earlier throughout the year. But, we were imminently set to close, like literally a day away to get this one done finally. And to have this happen, like, it's just such a downer. And again, it's not the first time that we've seen this before. We've had, $500,000 deal with investor involvement fall apart at the closing table, where family got involved and just, totally broke down the deal, and they bailed at the closing table, and we weren't able to put that one back together. That's a story for another time. But this one has been a bit different because, the seller has no, they haven't visited the property. They've been set to sell. They've been working with us. They were getting all those heirs and family members together to sign all of the docs. Like, they were an integral part of figuring out this messy title situation. And then they're the one to bail right at the end. And so as we try to approach this first, when the originator brought this up, okay, get on the line, let's start to figure this out. What are we working with here? To me, my thought always is like, okay, was this more of a long con? The seller was just looking for somebody to clear title on this property and then back out of the deal so he can get a better deal later, now that somebody cleared up his problem. But we own all the documentation. The lawyers that we've been working with, the seller doesn't have access. He didn't pay for any of this. So he literally have to start from day, square one again, if he ever wanted to sell the property. So, we have that over him for sure. And, this is where it starts to get a bit hairy too, is because we had originally signed all this purchase agreement and months ago, assignment, et cetera, us as a funder coming into this. So technically the close date had passed like quite a while ago, but it's also delayed because of titles issues. So it's like an implied continuation of the contract, and we just have everything documented. Calls and emails, and text messages, etc., just showing, good faith, continued push to close on this deal, plus the seller willingly and voluntarily participating throughout this process. So we are in the midst of trying to reach out to the title attorney who worked with us on this deal. They haven't been the best to communicate with. They probably couldn't represent us, but they could at least, point us in the right direction. Okay, what's the actual situation here? What might we have to consider? for a possible path forward. And I've just told the originator, hey, you've built up a ton of rapport. Like most people will feel some type of reciprocation. You've worked with this guy hand in hand for 8 months. Like he's got to be feeling bad. He was in tears and feeling emotional about this property. Like try calling him every day. Use a different number if you have to try to get him on the line. Keep the friendliness, some type of the rapport. But if he's not answering, and if it turns out, hey, this reschedule that he's tried to do with the title company for signing his docs isn't going to work out this next week, then we can start getting more aggressive. And we've used this tactic before where we'll send a demand letter, a nasty gram, serve people up. Hey, we're going to take legal action. We do have money committed, both time and sweat equity and monetary equity in this deal here. We want we need you to perform, and we're going to pursue to the fullest extent of the law to get you to sign these docs. And especially for unsophisticated folks, that can definitely scare them into acting. And we would have teeth here. Sometimes the demand letters that we send out, like they don't have teeth behind it. It's just like, okay, can we shake some bushes? But if we need to do something beyond that, we really have to weigh the extra costs associated with this one. This one we probably would, especially because the land investor working with us would be willing to commit more funds too. And that's a tangent as well. Before these messy title deals, we, $3,400 of that $5,000 that we had spent was before we knew it was really a messy title deal, and we had spent it on a survey. Like I would just not do that anymore. I wouldn't order any survey or any other kind of key due diligence until we're certain that title looks good from a particular property, especially if we know there's like an heirship or an estate situation. That was just a mistake, over 6 months ago that I would not repeat. Plus, if it's messy title too, we would, and we've incorporated this more in our docs. It's just, okay, if a deal falls through for whatever reason, like in good faith, plus just documented within our funding agreements, is that we'll ask for a, half of the cost to be covered by the land investor working with us if a deal falls through for whatever reason. So it's less of just, full monetary risk on our side. Or just to have a deposit from the land investor into the deal that gets paid out through the waterfall at the point of disposition. Like it's just fit better risk alignment. It's hard to look at hindsight 2020 on this one. So many things changed during the course of this, and we really felt like we were literally an hour away from closing on this deal. And seller Bales, who's been the most participatory part of this entire, like if there's one person I was trusting to do their part of the bargain, it was the seller, because they were there with us every step of the way until like literally the last minute. It is what it is. So we would have adjusted the risk alignment differently too, and we have updated our docs since then. But especially if we want to pursue this legally, we would ask for more participation from the land investor, and the person working with us is a sophisticated guy, solid individual and business owner. So and he's committed to seeing this through. So we're more open to potentially pushing on this. So we could see, okay, demand letter, will they get them to perform? That has worked for us in the past. That's yet another story for another time. But beyond that, again, pending attorney review here, we have enough ammo that we could almost assuredly put a lien on the property and cloud the title, which is helpful. But like if this guy just bails from wanting to sell the property at all, like we could just be waiting forever till it, till kingdom come. I don't know. So like that is an avenue for like legal protection, but it doesn't necessarily force a sale. But it is something we can do there. And then it's like an open question. Okay, how far do we take this into the court of law to try to force the seller to perform? Like I'm not sure what the cost might be, the timeline, etc. Like this is already starting to be a bit more of a questionable margin deal, especially in light of just difficulties of selling properties recently in a lot of the country, especially Texas. So I would be cautious from that perspective as well. But we are not certain yet. So game plan is try to still be, good cop for a couple more days, see if we can get the seller back on the line, figure out next steps with an attorney, and then start to get more aggressive and a bit more nasty, bad cop. Start sending demand letters, start getting legal, and see if we can scare people into acting, because sometimes it's just what you have to do to get something done. And we have done it before. But again, you can probably tell with my tone of voice from some of this, like it's just, you wish it could be easier sometimes. And like, again, the legal side is just, it's such a headache. I don't know who just thrives on getting involved in those situations and just loves it. I'm sure some people do. I don't know really any operators who prefer having to go through legal battles to get things done. It just makes everything more costly and time consuming. But nevertheless, it is a tool in your tool belt if needed. And we have solid, again, documentation in our favor in this case to go after it and try to get this deal done. I guess like 110K purchase property with significant upside. Like if it was much smaller, who knows, would we really have pursued it? But this one could be solid, and good deals are hard to come by in today's markets. TBD on that one, but just wanted to update you as far as our thought process and game plan about that. Talk to you once we have additional insight. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Again, 50K minimum, purchase price 150K plus preferred. And then Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. Again, I think I mentioned yesterday, just started emailing that list with some updates on the product. We're anticipating getting this out finally by the end of August with the soft launch at Unconference the first week of August. So I'm excited about that. Our engineering team has been working overtime to deliver on the product here. Been very exciting to see their progress and thoughtfulness here. I certainly could not have done this alone, and definitely could not have vibe coded my way through this either. It's pretty sophisticated. I'm excited to deliver it to you all here soon. And with that, subscribe and share. Take care, everybody. Bye.